First of all, Todd, could you just kind of share a little bit more about, first of all, your history with York County Schools? How long have you been there? What's your role and kind of how you got involved?
Sure. I always have to like do the math and figuring out what year it was. I started teaching in York County. Uh, I guess it was 2017. I started teaching at Dare Elementary. I was hired as a special education inclusion teacher, and so I work with various grade levels, um, teaching reading and math on the elementary level. 2 years ago, I was looking for a change. I have my degree in administration, and I've been trying to move into the administrative side of special education specifically, even though I could be a building principal or any of that. But that's not where I think my treasures lie. I think it's really with special education because that's been my career. So in 2 years ago, I was suggested that I look at teaching secondary. And so I thought that was a good idea. And then I got transferred over to Grafton Middle School last year. Had a great year teaching, co-teaching eighth grade English. Have some great teachers I work with. And then, in addition to teaching what's called academic lab, where I work with students that need decoding. So basically, the basic building blocks of reading. I work on that with middle schoolers, which is it's difficult because they're very behind in their reading ability, and it's truly a decoding issue, breaking down words into pieces to be able to decode bigger words. And it's a great skill that most of us have, but for whatever reason, these middle schoolers didn't gain that. And then this school year, I took on the role as the special education lead at Grafton Middle School. And so I have nine other special ed teachers working with me. Um, we have 900 and some students at Grafton Middle School. It's a really big middle school, and about 120-ish with IEPs. And so I think I'm finishing my 18th year of teaching, um, and God willing, I'll be doing some more. So
That's great. And going forward, you've been very vocal against the new school board leadership in York County. Kind of what motivates you to do that and to keep speaking out?
so I wouldn't say I'm speaking against them.
Uh,
I'm speaking against what they're doing. I have no personal conflict with or political conflict. A lot of people want to paint this as a political issue. For me, it's not a political issue. These people were duly elected by constituents. Now, I will say, I don't believe most of the voters who voted these three new board members in understand what they were doing as far as voting in people with the rhetoric and the very far right leaning methodology that they have. And they all three ran on buzzwords of the Republican Party. All three were featured on very far right podcasts, and they were listed on the Republican sample ballot as having R's next to their name. Um, the office of school board member is supposed to be non-political. It's supposed to be you are running to represent your district. Um, I think the three that are in there have their own agenda. Um, and when they were elected, I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And at the first work meeting, it was very clear from the jump of where they wanted to go with them. And so I watched that meeting online, like a lot of people did, probably not as many as should. But being as invested as I am, I've got five children. One is a graduate of York High. He's actually graduating this next month from University of Maryland with his degree in politics and government. He's a York High graduate, and super proud of him. I have two other students that are York High seniors. My son Joel is going to receive an applied diploma, and then my daughter Elise is going to be receiving her standard diploma. Oh, I'm sorry. My wife is correcting me. She's receiving an advanced diploma. My bad. So always rely on my wife to help me out. Um, and then I have another daughter with an IEP. Well, she has a disability and she's homeschooled currently, and she's graduating this year as well. We just thought that was the best for her needs. And then I have a fourth grader at Dare Elementary. Um, and so not only am I a teacher, but I'm a parent. I'm a special ed parent. Um, my son Joel has Down syndrome and autism, and then my daughter has Down syndrome, Jasmine. And I'm very invested in York County. My wife grew up here. She went to York High. We moved into our neighborhood to be in York County schools, specifically York High School. That's why we moved here. We live in the Edge Hill neighborhood, and her parents live here. Her grandparents, before they passed away, lived here in Edge Hill. So we have four generations here. We are very invested as a family in York County schools. Even if at some point I no longer an employee of York County schools, I'm still going to speak up for my kids and the kids I care about. I also found very quickly that a lot of teachers are fearful of speaking up and speaking out. And I approached every public comment that I made with the idea, well, if something's going to happen to me, I'd rather it happen to me than someone else that I care about. I can stand up for myself. I can speak for myself. I'm so proud that other people are speaking up for me and in defense of me, because at the end of the day, I know I've done nothing wrong. I know that I am doing what's right for kids. I always have in my career. And I speak up for those who either can't or won't speak up for themselves. I've done it through my whole career working with children with communication issues where they're not able to communicate their wants and needs. I'm doing that with teachers I work with. I've had teachers tell me that they are fearful of speaking up because of retaliation from these school board members, from a lot of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their supporters that will publicly dox people. They will publicly list names and allude to addresses, allude to family situations, just really scary behavior. And then with the talk of a militia, I've had Black coworkers who have told me that they can't speak up because there's a militia. And in the Black community, that word militia has so much weight to it, and it brings so much fear because of the past history of that. And I am willing to put myself in harm's way for my students. We do that every day with lockdown drills and things like that. And so why wouldn't I put myself in harm's way when it comes to political attacks, even though they shouldn't be political at all? Nothing I've said at any school board meeting or in my emails is political in nature. It's purely fact finding. It's purely, hey, you're saying this. Can you back that up? Or hey, I want you to do well. I truly do. I want the school board to be successful. And that's where a lot of people think, oh, you're attacking the school board. Oh, you're against them. Oh, you want to overturn an election. Not at all. What I want to do is to make sure that my children, my students, my coworkers, and my community are moving forward in a positive direction. At the very first board meeting, the work session, the immediate push was to elevate the board above everyone else, touting that, the board hires and fires the superintendent. The superintendent is not at the same level. And they wanted to even physically show that with removing Dr. Shandor from the dais. Now, I'm not the world's biggest Dr. Shandor fan. I respect the man. I respect him as a leader. I respect him as a man. We've had our disagreements. I'm currently 3 steps below on the pay scale because when I was hired, there was a pay freeze. And so new employees being hired were dropped below what they should have been receiving. So I'm currently 3 steps below what I should be. And I've had issue with that with Dr. Shandor. And so I'm not like in Dr. Shandor's pocket. I'm not working for Dr. Shandor. I'm not, a puppet of anybody. I'm purely a special ed teacher who loves his family, loves his students, loves his school. Grafton Middle School is a great place to be. And I want York County schools to be successful. And I think the best way for that to happen is to hold people accountable. When somebody runs for a political office, which is not even a political office, a public office, when somebody runs for a public office, they need to listen to the constituents. And that's a big thing that these three new board members were saying, is that they hear their constituents, the people that voted for them. However, it's more than just the people that voted for them. I did not vote for the person who won the election in my district, but they still represent me. Even if they think that I shouldn't email them about things that they are supposed to be working on that apply to my job and my family, they think that I shouldn't, as an employee, I shouldn't have that ability to ask them questions. And I disagree. I think I fully, not only am I a parent, a community member, but I'm also a teacher. And I'm sure you've seen the FOIA emails where I'm accused of harassment and I'm accused of taking time away from students to email,
Yeah, can you
board
expand on
members.
that just a little bit more? I was going to ask you that. In those emails, yeah, I have seen them. Vice Chair Kim Goodwin is accusing you of harassment from asking some pretty basic questions.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can you expand upon that?
yeah. My questions have pretty much been the same since February. And the reason why I keep repeating my questions is because they're not being answered. If Miss Goodwin, as she implied in her email to Miss Berry, isn't going to answer my question, tell me that. Communicate. Give me the recognition and the respect to say, Mr. Hoglund, thank you for your question. I'm not going to indulge you in that with a response. Okay, I think that's pretty cruddy. It's not the best response, but it's a response. Another response that I received, so I would have stopped emailing her with that, but I didn't get a response. And so when I don't get a response to an email and somebody doesn't say, hey, stop emailing me, I'm going to email it. And I wasn't like all, every day. I wasn't taking time away from students to email like it's implied. And I'm absolutely within my right as a parent, as a teacher, as a community member to ask questions of a public official, as of an elected official. Even if she chooses not to answer those, I deserve a response. And occasionally I would get a half answer or, hang on, Mr. Hoagland, I'm going to say something from the dais. And then she really didn't answer any of my questions from the dais. At last night's board meeting, she was asked specifically to address her comments on slavery. And she said, I have. That's not accurate. What she said is, I don't support slavery. Awesome. That's great. I'm glad you don't support slavery. But that's not what you're being asked. You're being asked to either apologize or acknowledge the statements that you made. And she hasn't done that. And so people are going to continue to show up and continue to ask these questions because they deserve an answer. And really, I wish she would just say, you know what? You're right. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. I've now learned that what I said was insensitive. I'm going to do better. I take to heart this idea of when you know better, you do better. And I think Miss Goodwin now knows better, but she's not doing better. I think Miss Goodwin understands that what she said was not okay because it was either misinformed, misguided, or she really believed that. I don't know because she hasn't responded to that besides to say, I don't support slavery. Nobody said you did. What we said is you are here online saying there's no evidence that slaves weren't happy. That's a big deal, in my opinion, especially in such a diverse community. Now, we're not the most diverse of communities. I mean, York County is a very white Christian Republican area. I get that. I got no issue with that. What I got an issue to is that you're excluding people that do live here. You're not being inclusive. And as a special education teacher, inclusivity is a huge part of my job. that we need to do whatever we can so that individuals with disabilities feel included and welcomed in whatever setting is appropriate, be it in a general ed classroom, in a middle school, or just in, hey, you get to come to the football games. I mean, whatever the case is, that opportunity should be there. And nothing a school board member should say should make anyone feel like they're not welcome. And that includes our Black students, our gay, lesbian, trans students that we have. That's been another issue, that there's been doxing attempts by Miss Goodwin with a trans student at York High. That hasn't even been addressed in the media and the public comment. Everyone's just kind of let that be, because it happened some time ago, and that I don't know if that student is still there. I don't know. There was also an attempt to oust a teacher from Williamsburg that was vocal or trying to do some things, and there was attempts to dox them, and that's not okay. We're all You don't get into teaching for the fame, the glory, or the money. You get into teaching because you love the idea of helping people move from where they are to where they can be. And that's why I'm here. Is this board is at a place where they are divisive. They are trying to turn York County into something that it shouldn't be. And I feel it's my duty as a parent and as a teacher to speak up for my students and my children. That's what I feel is my job in this situation. We have students and we have teachers that cannot speak out of fear of their own safety. I'm here. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Now, I'm going to be professional. I'm going to be maybe snarky at times, but I'm absolutely going to speak the truth and hold people accountable. I choose my words very carefully. Anyone who knows me knows that my emails, my public comments, all of that, I put a lot of thought, because words have meaning. That's what I do. Is I teach reading, and I teach that words are important. And if we use words accurately, we can convey a message that is very impactful. But if we are loose with our words and just throw words out like harassment, if we throw words out like indoctrination, if we throw around words that don't mean what we want them to mean, that can cause trouble. Last night at the school board meeting, my school principal spoke on my behalf. And that was so humbling to hear someone who I respect as a leader to say wonderful things about me and the work that I do. I love that she said great things about me, but it was really sad that she felt that she needed to speak on my behalf because I'm being accused of something that, number one, I didn't do. Number two, is absolutely retaliation for speaking up and asking questions. It is a retaliation. And then Miss Goodwin's response to Mrs. Anthony was, I didn't submit the paperwork, and I'd have to look at the exact wording, but I believe she said something along the lines of, I didn't submit the paperwork because I didn't want it to appear like retaliation. Or perceived, sorry, my wife in the background again, to be perceived as retaliation. Okay. If you feel that I did not harass you, you should say, that's my fault. I went too far. Mr. Hoglund did not harass me with his emails, which everyone believes. Anyone who reads my emails sees that I was not harassing them. I was asking very simple questions. Or say, I don't want to retaliate against someone or let people think that. This is not retaliation. But she didn't say that. What she said is she didn't want it to perceive that way. So she's more worried about the appearance of things and the possible legal ramifications of retaliatory behavior against a teacher that speaks up against, and it's not even against, just asking questions. Like, I'm not like down with Miss Goodwin or any of that. It's absolutely, hey, you're in this job. I need you to do your job correctly. I mean, in my email, the questions are really clear. Can you work with this board and maybe do mediation? Like, I think that's a good idea. That's not political. That's not anything. Can y'all work together? They haven't had a board retreat yet. Here we are in April. It's been 4 months and they have not had a board retreat. They have not signed the code of ethics. That's a problem. The fact that they are 4 months into this job, making recommendations and spending the division's money, but they haven't agreed to a simple code of conduct, that's concerning. I have to agree to a code of conduct. I agree to responding to emails within 24 hours. And that's been most of my emails. Hey, I've sent this email. I heard from Schaefer. I heard from Richardson. A little time later, I did hear back from Payovich, even though I think it was Chat GPT generated. Cool, whatever, you do you. Fairman would say, thanks for your input. Okay, you didn't answer a question and still hasn't. And then Goodwin takes it as harassment. There's a huge disconnect. The fact that Jimmy Richardson will respond to my emails personally, use my name, and talk to me like a human. Schaefer will do the same thing. When I asked every board member about indoctrination and the claims of indoctrination by teachers that parents saw during COVID, and there's so much that they saw, and it's just not right. Nobody has anything. The one thing that I think Mark Schaefer replied to is, I think there might have been something asking on some worksheet about preferred pronouns. That's it. That's the indoctrination that this one thing was asking. And the teacher said, oh, it was a mistake. I copied it from such and such. I shouldn't have taken that off. Cool. You own up to your mistakes. And that's really what, I'm not a perfect person. I'm 45 years old. I've been teaching 18 years. I took a 4-year hiatus because I was so fed up with teaching and just all the of it. And then I came back with a love, a passion for teaching. And I love teaching in York County. But it is getting to the point where, man, how many times a day do I have to hear nonsense about my job? How often do I have to hear that people are thinking I'm doing something that I'm not doing, or that I'm not doing something that I should be? And for that to come from a school board member in retaliation to sending questions, that she questions my work by suggesting that I'm not tending to the special education students. I mean, they're not sheep, they're children, and they are learning. My job, I'm doing my job, and I'm good at my job. And people who, learn from me, my students, the parents, my coworkers, have stood up and said, Mr. Hoglund is doing his job. I need Miss Goodwin to do hers. And it's not about the politics. It's about the actual policy. Do your job. It's not about listening to your donors. It's about, who's in your district. It's listening to all people. I'm all about some inclusion. And I hear from our school board that that's a dirty word, and that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. That's another talking point that they've heard from some rhetoric somewhere. So I'm a talker. I apologize.
No, you've been great. I appreciate it.
I am
I know I've
passionate.
had you for a little while, but one
Okay.
more question real quick while we're here. I know that Miss Fairman and Miss Goodman have they've decided to remove themselves from the Let's Talk
Mm-hmm.
feature, and that's basically the teachers can talk within the district anonymously.
So it's not just teachers, but anyone
Anyway, okay.
Who are fearful of retribution, who are fearful of retaliation, can absolutely send something anonymously. And I know teachers, I work with teachers who have. They've told me, hey, I had a concern about this. I didn't want my name attached to it, but I'm curious and they need to know about this. And so they would use that because they are fearful of the retaliation and the retribution. I work with teachers that don't live in York County, but their children attend York County schools, and they don't want that held against them. They feel like they're in this weird place where they can't speak out because they don't live here. That's not true. Your kids go here, you work here. I have a coworker who's worked for YCSD for 18 years, and she's fearful of speaking up because of retribution. And that's not okay. And so she used I know this for a fact, she used the Let's Talk app to be able to get her concerns heard without it coming back on her, as far as being attacked or singled out, or have a militia sent after you. Well, I think I might have spoken. I don't know if I spoke at a school board meeting. I might have spoken at one school board meeting before this new board came on, but my son did. My fourth grader. He was then in third grade. He spoke a couple months before this new board took on because he had concerns about lockdown drills. And he spoke in front of the board, and the board responded, the district responded, and there was no fear of retaliation there. I was comfortable in letting my 9-year-old speak in front of the board. I wouldn't dare let my 17-year-old speak in front of the board because I don't know what will happen. You got certain individuals who may or may not be associated with the militia with a paper and pen, and they're jotting things down and rallying every time certain words are said, shaking their heads on camera. I don't want that guy coming after me, or after my children. He can come for me because I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not fearful of what is coming. And I've put myself there specifically because I know I can. But there's others that can't. There's others that either for whatever reason they're single, they live in a lifestyle that doesn't mesh well with the Christian right, white nationalist kind of view that a lot of these people are living, and that they are fearful, they are scared, and it's not a Shandor thing. It's not a York County is terrible for this or that. York County has its flaws, but the school board, specifically these new members, are trying to take us in a direction that is not healthy for students, not healthy for teachers, and it's going to take us back to the 1950s. And honestly, I think that's the goal. I think the goal is to go back to a time when our schools were segregated, and when I am not surprised if they try to defund public education, because that was attempted with the board of supervisors with what was his name? Walt Zarimba. Is that his name? What was his
Yeah.
name? Yeah. And who worked for him? Oh, that was Linda Fairman. And she spoke out many times on, oh, they're teaching CRT. We need to defund the schools. They're teaching SEL. They need to defund the schools. Kim Goodwin is a counselor. She knows what SEL is, and she doesn't stand up for that. Of course, she also claims that people have a victim mentality. That was one of her famous internet posts. Sounds like she has a victim mentality, and because I'm attacking her and harassing her, according to her. And that's not at all what's happening. What's happening is I'm an adult, I'm a professional, and I'm trying to hold other adults and professionals accountable. I do the same thing with eighth graders. Like, dude, you said this. You can't say that. Stop saying that. It's kind of the same situation.
God, I never want to go back to eighth grade again. That was
It's
probably me at my worst.
it's
Uh,
funny. Oh yeah, I absolutely hated middle school as a kid, and for years of teaching, I started out teaching preschool, and I was like, I never want to teach middle school, and then had the opportunity, and I teach eighth graders, and I love it. I absolutely love it because you can have a conversation with a kid, and you can have like, listen, dude, how's that going to help you in the future? You making that choice, or you doing this thing that's not beneficial? How about we read about that and let's move forward? And that's where I need our school board. I in all of my comments, my public comments, I relate to my job as a special education teacher and wanting the school board to fix their behavior, get it together. Y'all need to do what you're supposed to do. It's the same thing I say in eighth grade when kids are acting a fool, or doing something they shouldn't be doing. I'm like, y'all are better than this. You need to do better. Um, Unfortunately, I was out of town, so I couldn't attend this last meeting. I'm kind of glad I wasn't there because it gave the opportunity for other voices to be heard, and people stood up, even though they were told to sit down, but people stood up to support me and all teachers that want to speak up. And that shows a lot, that people are willing to stand up now and say something.